just simply not privy to technological advancements, but something came to my attention recently that is incredibly suspicious. And technological Mandela effects we haven't talked too much about on this channel, but there have been quite a few. Two really notable examples of this are electric scooters invented in the 1880s and video phone calls that existed in Germany. And the strange thing about the video calls was that Berlin was completely, there's an entire infrastructure designed for people to go in to a booth and actually make a video call amongst one another. What makes it even stranger is that when World War II started, that technology ceased and it just simply wasn't a thing anymore. That almost sounds like the Apollo moon missions. We can't go back to the moon because the technology is lost, right? Anyway, I would like to know what you guys think about this. I'm quite confused by it. Pretty much, I can't, like, I'm trying to make sense of it, but the electric scooters and video calls are absurd enough. And I didn't even mention the electric car, which came out roughly the same time as a normal automobile, which was like in the 1870s or something. You know, what comes to mind when you think of fax machines, right? Like, when do you think they were invented? If you were just to get a guess off the top of your head. If I were to guess off the top of my head, I would say the 1960s, maybe the 50s. You'd be able to transmit paper messages, printed messages, across long distance. And we all know about telegraphs, right? Telegraphs were a thing, and they transmitted code across long distances. And there was an entire infrastructure for it, even undersea cables. But what's really strange about the telegraph is that in 1843, the first fax machine was made. 1843. In 1843, the Industrial Revolution was still in its youth phase. The only places in the world that had railroads were in Europe and the Northeast US. And in 1843, a fax machine was created. Now, wait till I tell you how this thing works, because it is very strange and very confusing because it was able to scan. You kind of wonder about these things, you know? If the past is being altered to advanced technology, then this kind of makes sense because, say, for example, if you go into the past and make that society more technologically advanced, say the 1800s, then I think that would cause, a butterfly effect or retrocausality, which would boomerang us into an even more advanced present, or future here. And I think 2025 will be the year where we're officially absolutely creeped out by AI, how it's virtually indistinguishable from life. And I think that's one of the most important things that happened this year. And how do we know that if the Mandela effect it didn't alter the past to make faster advancements, that those faster advancements are directly correlated to this astronomical rise in technological advancements we have today, which are seem to be far exceeding human evolution in any way. And it's something to think about. Well, anyway, the 1843 fax machine was invented by Scottish inventor Alexander Bain, a forerunner to the modern fax technology that used synchronized pendulums and electric currents to transmit simple line-by-line images over telegraph wires, though it was too slow and primitive for widespread use, relying on chemically treated paper to reproduce designs from metal plates. The groundbreaking device used clock mechanisms to stay in sync, effectively allowing the first electrical transmission of images, predating the telephone and laying the groundwork for later fax inventions. Right. And only a decade or so later were they able to send color images through a fax machine. Colored images. Something doesn't add up with me here. I know all about the telegraph. I know all about the telegraph and have for a long time. This is how, let's go a little deeper into how this thing worked. Scanning. A stylus attached to a pendulum would swing over a metal plate with raised conductive designs. Electrical signal. As the stylus touched the metal, it completed an electrical circuit, sending pulses down a telegraph wire. Synchronization. A similar pendulum and stylus at the other end, kept in perfect time by clockwork, receive these pulses. Reproduction. The receiving stylus would create a similar pattern, often by scraping or marking chemically treated paper, reproducing the original image. And just a decade later, they were able to send colored images. Make it make sense. I'm really asking you guys, make it make sense. We're talking about 1843, but let's not forget whatever we're told about history. A lot of things don't add up, from the Cologne Cathedral to all this outstanding architecture that could hardly be reproduced today. So maybe the 1800s were more advanced than we thought. I don't know. Or even the Middle Ages, perhaps. Like, some of this architecture is absolutely astonishing beyond comprehension. And again, I don't believe what we're told about the past is actually what it is. They're re-traumatizing the population by teaching us about wars and death and dictators, wars and death and dictators, while leaving out maybe hidden truths that would cause us to actually evolve instead of this monstrosity that we're in. So Frederick Bakewell improved the design by replacing pendulums with rotating cylinders which were easier to synchronize. 1865, Caselli introduced the pentelegraph, the first commercially successful fax service operating between Paris and Lyon, France. 1865. 1964, which is what I was thinking, which when faxes were invented, because that makes sense. Xerox introduced the first modern commercial fax machine, the Magnafast telecopier. So that is a little bit interesting that it took over 100 years for them to design a modern fax machine the way that we think of them, but they were around for a long time. And I want to encourage you guys to look at some images of this contraption because it looks something like out of an alien planet. This 1843 fax machine looked absolutely ridiculous. It kind of looks like a time machine. It's like kind of what the comparison I can make. So is that a Mandela effect? What is it?